Khabib Nurmagomedov's father drops jaws with payday it will take to make Conor McGregor rematch. Khabib Nurmagomedov has repeatedly shot down the idea that Conor McGregor should get a rematch with a win over Donald Cerrone. Further, the lightweight champ has also said he's set on the financial front, but could he change his mind if the UFC tabled a ridiculous amount of money? Well, following Conor's big win over Donald Cerrone, Khabib's father is turning heads throughout MMA after he reported just how much money it will take to book a rematch with his son and McGregor. As you know, leading up to UFC 246, Dana White said if Conor wins, he'll face the winner of the April 18th bout between Khabib and Tony Ferguson. As you certainly know, McGregor needed just 40 seconds to finish Cerrone on Saturday night. Well, since McGregor's impressive win, Khabib's father, Abdul Manap, spoke with a Russian media outlet while talking about the possibility of his son facing McGregor again. The renowned coach reportedly said this: "We also need revenge against Conor," Abdul Manap told RIA Novosti, "but give us $100 million. The day after the fight against Ferguson, give us that amount, and then why not get revenge? I don't know, maybe Dana White wants to arrange it for that amount. He needs that fight." So yeah, $100 million? That would be quite the payday for Khabib, but there's a couple of things to consider here while looking at these comments. First off, the likelihood of the UFC agreeing to pay Khabib that much money for a rematch with Conor is almost non-existent, even if the fight ended up being one of the biggest in MMA history. Recently, Conor claimed he was going to make $80 million for his fight with Cerrone, but many analysts were highly skeptical of that figure, even if it includes sponsorship and endorsement money the Irish star was going to make. McGregor is believed to have made around $100 million for his 2017 boxing match with Floyd Mayweather Jr., but that fight was one of the biggest pay-per-view events in history, and the compensation model for boxing is completely different. It's also worth noting that Khabib has told the media before that just because his father says something, it doesn't necessarily mean he's thinking the same way. Plus, as stated earlier, Khabib has said he's fighting now for his legacy and not for money. In fact, after Khabib beat Conor in 2018, his uncle Alex made the following claim about an offer his nephew received to fight McGregor again. From the start, they offered him $15 million if he agrees, but Khabib said no. Let Conor stand in line. Let him fight with others. Khabib wants to fight Ferguson and then finish his career. But what do you guys think? Could Khabib change his mind if he beats Ferguson and agree to fight Conor again if the UFC offers him enough money, or will he stick to his guns and pursue his fights with, say, George St. Pierre or Justin Gaethje? Or could he decide to walk away from the game if he beats El Cucuy and retire undisputed and undefeated? Jorge Masvidal is now leaning towards a fight with Kamaru Usman over Conor McGregor. For several weeks prior to UFC 246, Jorge Masvidal was pushing for a bout with Conor McGregor. Gamebred also said he'd rather face the massive star next over welterweight champ Kamaru Usman. But following McGregor's quick and violent win over Donald Cerrone this past Saturday, Masvidal's reporting he's leading towards fighting Usman next rather than the notorious one. So what changed? Let's step back for a minute. After Masvidal bombed out Ben Askren in record-fast fashion at UFC 239 last summer, charismatic fighters started calling for a bout with McGregor, even though at that time he was in the title shot mix at 170. Eventually, Masvidal defeated Nate Diaz, and Usman put away Colby Covington. But Masvidal continued to say that he'd rather fight McGregor next, due to how big a paycheck that fight would deliver. Well, now that McGregor has scored another win at 170, and because he said he wants to go after the welterweight title, the idea of an interim title fight with Masvidal has been floated. Usman is reportedly injured, and it's not clear when he'll fight next. So when Masvidal was recently asked to weigh in on the possibility of fighting McGregor for an interim belt, Gamebred said this: "That'd be good too if Conor wanted to do that," Masvidal said about fighting Conor for an interim 170 belt. "One of these guys is going to scrap with me. I'm leaning right now towards Usman. The way he's been talking shit. If Conor wants to get it done, it won't be hard to get it done. But I'm not going to sit here and entertain bullshit and stuff, you know? I just want to scrap. If you watch the UFC 246 broadcast, then you know Masvidal also reported when interviewed that if all things were equal in terms of pay, he'd rather fight Usman. The champ has been responding to questions about Masvidal lately with a, quote, who? And that hasn't sat well with the rugged vet. So this explains why Masvidal appears to have changed gears a little bit and is saying he wants to fight Usman next. Further, it doesn't seem like a bout with Masvidal is Conor's top priority. When Jorge was asked if his new stance was due to not being impressed with Conor at UFC 246, Masvidal said this: "It's not that I'm not impressed. He has different plans. I'm not trying to ruin his plans either. He's got his own plans and things he wants to do. Go and get them done, my brother. I could give a fuck less. I'm going to get money no matter what." It's certainly possible that once UFC 246 is in the rearview mirror over the coming days, that Conor could come out and call for a fight with Masvidal. If that happens, one would think Jorge and his team would jump on the opportunity, right? But following McGregor's pivotal win, UFC President Dana White sounded pretty emphatic about having Conor fight for the 155 title next, so a bout with Masvidal may never get tabled. What do you guys think? Would you rather see Masvidal fight Usman next for the 170 crown or throw hands with Conor? Michael Bisping guarantees Conor McGregor is fighting Nate Diaz next. Leading up to UFC 246, there was endless speculation about who Conor McGregor would fight next if he beat Donald Cerrone. Well, now that McGregor quickly put away Cowboy, Michael Bisping's outlined why he's certain McGregor is going to throw hands with Nate Diaz for a third time. Prior to McGregor's triumphant return this past weekend, much of the talk was about whether the controversial star will fight Jorge Masvidal next, or the winner of the April 18th bout between lightweight champ Khabib Nurmagomedov and Tony Ferguson. Following McGregor's quick win at UFC 246, Dana White made it pretty clear that he wants McGregor to fight for the lightweight title next, rather than battle Masvidal. Well, Bisping was a guest on the latest episode of Ariel Helwani's MMA show, and not surprisingly, the legendary fighter was asked about McGregor's next move. Here's what the former middleweight champ had to say.
God bless him, he's making tons of money. He's going to fight Khabib, or I tell you what's going to happen. I'll guarantee he fights Nate Diaz next. Khabib ain't going to fight anytime soon.
Why?
Masvidal and Usman, they're probably going to fight each other. Khabib's going to fight Tony in April. Then it's Ramadan. If he beats Tony, he's not going to fight anytime soon. And Conor already teased Diaz, and that's good business for everybody involved. Fans want to see it. Everyone makes money. So there you go.
Okay.
That's what's going to happen.
It's an interesting point, no question. McGregor has repeatedly said he wants to fight Diaz in a rubber match at some juncture. It just seems like in recent weeks, the media and fans haven't been talking about McGregor-Diaz 3 as much as, say, Conor versus Masvidal. That's likely because previously, McGregor said he wanted to fight for the BMF title, and Masvidal won that belt by beating Diaz in November. The question is, however, is the UFC willing to risk McGregor's title shot at 155 by having him fight Diaz, a guy who's coming off a loss? Sure, a third bout would very likely take place at welterweight, but if McGregor was to lose, interest in having him fight for the lightweight title would definitely take a hit. In fact, if that happened, and if Khabib defeats Ferguson at UFC 249, you know the champ would refuse to fight McGregor again. He's already said that Conor doesn't deserve a rematch yet. Of course, you could also argue that if Conor fights Masvidal next and loses, then his title shot at 155 would also go out the window. But it is worth noting that McGregor's longtime coach, John Kavanagh, has repeatedly talked about Conor fighting Diaz for a third time. In fact, just a few days before UFC 246, Kavanagh said the following while talking to TalkSport.com. "I'm not gonna lie, I'm a fan of Nate Diaz and the Diaz brothers," the Straight Blast Gym leader said. "The two fights they had were fantastic. We're 1-1. So it seems inevitable that those paths are going to cross again, but let's see what happens." What do you guys think? Is Bisping right? Is McGregor going to target a third fight with Diaz next? And will the UFC be on board? Or, since McGregor is such a massive star, do they have no choice but to grant him his wish?
Let's go, Nathan. Let's go, brother. Number 3. It's always here. So, we're right here, Nathan.